Here to induct Wanda Jackson into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Roseanne Cash.
Wanda Jackson. Even her name sounds like a declaration and a promise. Wanda Jackson. I asked Wanda what she wanted people to know most about her, and she said, number one, I can rock. Number two, I was a lady, and reputations are important. And number three, rock and roll and God are not mutually exclusive. As one writer noted, Wanda was there at the beginning of rock and roll, and for girls with guitars, myself included, Wanda was the beginning of rock and roll. Everyone who cares about roots music and rock and roll reveres Wanda, but in particular, every young woman I know, musician or otherwise, worships her as the prototype, the first female rock star, as she so modestly acknowledges herself. But this is not a woman who used her staggering beauty to manipulate an audience. This is not a coy woman. This is not a woman who used her powerful energy as a means to just become famous. She is vibrant and edgy without being abrasive, and sweet without being saccharine. This is a woman who has rhythm and joy in equal parts to the depth of her soul. As Marshall Grant, one of the original Tennessee Two, my dad's bass player, said about her, she was the only woman back then who could hold her own with Elvis's crowd. She came off stage every night to a standing ovation. She was a little tiger out there. And as Bob Dylan noted, this is an atomic fireball of a lady. When her husband of 47 years, Wendell Goodman, first met her, he was dating her best friend. But he said that he was so impressed with this beautiful, gorgeous, sexy thing who never talked about herself. She was so humble. Well, Wendell gave up the best friend and married Wanda in 1961. He also gave up his career as an IBM programmer to manage Wanda and travel with her, and they've now been partners in love, marriage, spiritual faith, and rock and roll for 47 years. She started her career when she was a junior in high school in 1954, and she said it was a family affair. Her father drove her to performances and managed her career, and her mother sewed her outfits. She was put on package shows in the South with Elvis, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, and my dad, among others. Her buddies, as she calls them. It occurred to me to ask her how many times my dad had knocked on her motel room door on those tours. And she paused and said, well, honey, you know, my daddy was out on the road with me, so I don't believe he knocked even once. Well, if so, given Wanda's breathtaking beauty, this shows unprecedented restraint on the part of my father. And as Marshall pointed out with a sigh of remembrance, there were a lot of people knocking on her door. But even if they did knock, as Wanda herself says, I was always a lady. Indeed she was, but she may be the only lady in history who had that kind of rock and rhythm and raw sensuality, and not only didn't self-destruct, but had fun and kept her soul intact in the process. She's not a red carpet, celebrity hangout, rehab, tabloid kind of person. She's a person of strong religious conviction, deep integrity, a road warrior, and a rock and roll queen. In the beginning, Wanda was a country singer. And one day on the road, Elvis said to her, you should do this new kind of music like I'm doing. And Wanda said, but I'm just a country singer. And Elvis said, well, I am too. And that was that. Wanda was equally authentic in rockabilly as she was in country. Elvis let the genie out of the bottle with that one little exhortation. She told her mother, who was making her stage clothes, that she didn't want to wear those big skirts anymore. She and her mother created the fringe dresses, high heels, and long earrings that brought her image and her musical style into an electric, cohesive, sharp focus. But she never gave up doing country as well as rockabilly. Sometimes she would release a record with a rocker on side A and a country song on side B. She had and still has enormous international popularity. Fujiyama Mama was a huge hit in Japan, as well as the US in 1958. It was followed by her top 40 smash, Let's Have a Party. She followed that with a couple of top 10 country singles, and then topped the German charts in 1965 with Santa Domingo, which she sang in German. She followed with more success on the pop charts in America, a television show, stints in Las Vegas, and in the 1980s had a resurgence of popularity in Europe and Australia that still borders on fanaticism. Today, she tours about 80 dates a year. She's been recording for 54 years and has recorded in 4 languages. She's made around 50 albums. She's toured the world and inspired legions of people with her grace and her fire. She said she wants to keep doing this as long as my health holds up and as long as the fans want to come out and see me, but it's not fallen away yet. No, it's not. And about tonight, she said that it feels good to be up there with my buddies. It's come full circle. So Wanda, you are now up there with your buddies, Carl, Elvis, Jerry Lee, and Johnny, and amongst so many others of your peers and those who have followed you. You are, as Wendell always introduces you, the First Lady of Rock and Roll and the Queen of Rockabilly, and now a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Wanda Jackson.